The Fazbear Entertainment Board was made up of 5 men and 4 women. Edwin, at 64 years old, was the oldest person in the room. 64 years old, does that sound right? When I was rereading The Storyteller, I noticed it actually said Edwin's age, but I felt something was off. And what do you know? I was right. Hello, I'm Glitch and welcome to the video. I believe Edwin's age is an important piece of information to have in mind with the upcoming release of Secret of the Mimic. So let's get to it. As shown in the quote before, Edwin is said to be 64 years old in The Storyteller. He seems way too young, though. I know there isn't a solid year or date that Security Breach is set, however, there are a couple of years we know that are agreed upon possibilities. These years are 2029, 2035, and 2040. If you weren't aware, there are calendars scattered around the Pizzaplex, and in them a date is circled, July 4th. These are the only years that have a July 4th on a Wednesday, like the calendars in the game, and the only ones that make sense relatively to the chaos that is the timeline. This means we can assume that the tales from the Pizzaplex, and therefore the Storyteller story, take place around the same time, or at least about a year or two before Security reached the game. So, in my rereading of the story, I had wondered when Edwin would have been born, so I took the years, and that is when I noticed the problem. If you take the latest year possible, 2040, Edwin would have been born in 1976, only 3 years before Secret of the Mimic takes place. Clearly that's not right. But if we take 2035, he'd be born in 1971, still not right. Even if we take the earliest year, 2029, he'd be born in 1965, which would put him at 14 years old in 1979, which still makes no sense. Even if we take the potential 2-year gap Tales and Security Breach may have, he'd still be only 16. Can you sense my frustration? So obviously we have a problem. At any of those ages, it is impossible for Edwin to have done what he is said to have. Got to college, made a company, have a kid, a wife, all for several years. It is clear something is not right. However, there is a bit of a relief. Ish. In the story, The Mimic, it tells us Edwin is 24 years old. Hooray, an answer. Or does this just make everything more confusing? In The Mimic, Edwin is said to have started his vacuum company right out of college in the early 70s. College is typically about 4 years long. If we assume he started at 18, then he'd also end up starting his company when he was about 22 years old. He also marries Fiona around this time as well. And while it doesn't say exactly when, it can be presumed that they had David around this time too, as he is said to be supposed to be put in kindergarten about a year after The Mimic is set. So let's say David is about 3 or 4 during the story. But again, there is a problem. David's age is cutting it close. Depending on when he was born, it is impossible for him to be 3 when Edwin is 24 if he was born when Edwin is 22. He'd be a year off. And it's an even bigger problem if they had David after they married, as they couldn't have David before they married, as Fiona dies during his birth. And even if we ignore all that, it is still odd. Edwin started a company, failed a company, and was bought out by Fazbear Entertainment all in only 2 years. Speaking of Fazbear Entertainment, this brings up another issue. As we can see on the coins present in both VR games and in Ruin, Fazbear Entertainment was started in 1983. However, Edwin has started his company in the early 70s, so if he was 22 when he started and 24 now, it is still very much not 1983. Fazbear Entertainment can't exist. And the man he signs the contract to isn't even Henry Emily or William Afton. It's a guy named Grant Starling. Plus, the Fazbear Entertainment fan is in the trailer for Secret of the Mimic, so is the game even set in 1979, or is that just the year David dies, or the year Edwin goes originally missing? As far as we know, David dies around March and April, and the first team that goes into the building is in December, and then Team B a month later. This is an odd gap for the game to have if we, the player, end up going to the factory in 1983 or even later. It's incredibly confusing. So just what the hell is going on here? There's so many timeline shenanigans, age mishaps, and just chaos. What now? Is there a solution to any of it? I've thought of a few. Actually, during writing the script for this, I thought I had found a solution, a good one even. If we backtrack some years, 2012 actually had a July 4th on a Wednesday, making it a perfect contender for the year Security Breach is set. And if we take that with Edwin's age in The Storyteller, he'd be born in 1948. This would make him, oh how convenient, 22 years old in 1970. A perfect match. This also makes 1979 a good year as well, as this would give him some time to work for Afton and Henry, and after David's death to grieve and then eventually go missing. But there is one problem I noticed with this, which is, when you think about it, 2012 doesn't seem like it actually is a good year for Security Breach to take place. The calendar works, yes, but this would actually be before FNAF 3 or even FNAF 6 even takes place. Plus, while yes, the technology in the games is all pretty advanced for their respective years, Security Breach is simply too high tech for 2012 in my opinion. I mean, AR that lets you glitch through walls, sentient, sapient animatronics, and the type of generative AI that plagues the Pizzaplex and Tales and Ruin is fairly new to us now in 2025. No way it would have existed in 2012. So while it seemed good at first, this solution is unfortunately a no-go. Another solution would literally just be making Tales games not canon, but I honestly don't think that is going to happen with the way Secret of the Mimic is being set up so far. And in my opinion, I don't want them to suddenly decanonize a bunch of stuff that is important, like GGY, Tiger Rock, or even the Mimic story itself because of this. Which leads me to solution 3. A retcon. It is the simplest solution. It can be done possibly however Steelwold or Scott wants it to be done. Infinite possibilities. They could reestablish his age in Secret of the Mimic with the proper year, and have all of this solved, for the most part anyway. We still have to figure out the proper year for security breach, but who knows, maybe that'll happen sooner than we expect. I do have one specific idea of how they could retcon it though, which leads into a little mini-theory I thought of recently. This is actually based off of John FNAF's most recent theory, so if you haven't seen that yet, please do watch it, it's great. So, when I was watching his theory, he brought up these posters in the alleyway of the security puppet minigame of FNAF Pizza Sim. He mentions them being missing posters for Susie, however, I was thinking of something different. At first, I thought it could be actually Henry. After all, they do look somewhat similar to the sprite of FNAF World, but maybe I was just thinking of the Oop Troops Henry design. Then I thought, what if it's Edwin in the posters? The trailer for Secret of the Mimic begins with saying he's missing. Are these posters looking for him? I doubt it'll happen, but I think this would be a great way to retcon Edwin's age in Secret of the Mimic. We, the player, are shown a missing poster of him with his name, age, and when he was last seen. Maybe even a canon design for him, too. And as I said earlier, this could also make 1983 a potential year for the game to be set instead of 1979, as Fazbear Entertainment would actually exist, and Charlie dies where those posters are seen in 1983. I even found even more evidence for Secret of the Mimic being set in 1983 after I finished the script. As we know, the Security Puppet minigame is set right before Midnight Motors, as the file name for Motors is actually called Later That Night. In Five Left at Freddy's, there is actually a Midnight Motors level. In Taco's charity stream for Thankmas, a sign was actually revealed with Murray's company on it, advertising a vacuum called Hug. Could this mean they truly are set in the same time? If Security Puppet and Midnight Motors are in 1983, could the same be true for Secret of the Mimic? All that's left to say is, what do you think? How will they fix this? Or is there some detail I've missed that actually fixes everything? Please do tell me in the comments. I love seeing everyone's different interpretations and theories, and I'm open to anything, and I'm very excited for this game. And with that, I will hopefully see you again when I make another one of these videos. I've already got another full theory for next time, and I've got a lot of thoughts about this series. Goodbye for now.